Frankie, how are you?
Yeah, doing all right.
Bit of a
Uh,
pause there.
yeah, it's still sort of recovering from what I witnessed on Saturday.
Hmm.
I mean, the good news is that I went to the Commonwealth Games. Brilliant atmosphere. I went there with a couple of friends who were not from the area. So they were all kind of raving about how good Birmingham is, which was like okay for me. And they're like, God, everyone's so friendly. And I was like, yeah, I remember that growing up, everyone being super friendly. But yeah, I mean, just the volunteers were fantastic. Getting back and forth from the stadium, the Alexander Stadium, Perry Bar was great. It was just like a festival feel. It was almost kind of like a sort of like London 2012 a little bit and Glastonbury Festival, that sort of a feeling. Everyone's in a good mood. There's people from all over the place there. So yeah, strongly that put me in a great mood. I was elated, and then Saturday came. When Saturday comes,
When Saturday comes, and also because we were trying to do a podcast, obviously straight after the match, but then you messaged to say there were some issues with the trains as well. So I think your day just got from bad to worse, then, didn't it? It was sort of
yeah,
the Bournemouth game, and then you were stuck in Birmingham New Street, which is a fine station, Frankie, but you
fine
don't want to be stuck at
station to
any
be stuck
station.
in. There is no finer station to be stuck in. But yeah,
Give you a sense of civic pride to be stuck there.
yeah, I did get to see the bull in person as well. I did. I just want Birmingham to make that a feature of the city. It's just brilliant. Like I have been told that there might be a reason that they can't keep it outside because it might not be able to handle cold weather. But if the
Like an actual ball.
yeah, it's just grow some fur, put some fur on it. But I don't know, like if there is a way to make it a major feature of the city centre, it looks brilliant. It'd be unique. People would love to go see it. It'd become a big feature of the city.
Mm.
I am campaigning right now here on the All Villa No Filler podcast for that bull to become a feature of the city centre.
Well, I mean, as you say, Frankie, I think there has been a lot of talk about trying to keep it there. I think it would be great. I mean, Birmingham does have a lot of things going for it to attract people for sure. But that it does seem like it's quite an iconic. It's already become quite an iconic thing for the city. So if we can keep it in Birmingham, then we should. Then we absolutely should. And of course, if anybody is interested in finding out where to go in Birmingham, look no further than allvillanofiller.com,
Oh
our
yes,
new website, which was launched in the last couple of weeks. Not only does it have a lot of information about our podcast and about us, obviously, but also places to go and visit and see and eat and drink and all that sort of stuff in Birmingham, which there's a lot to do, Frankie.
so much to
So
do.
I advise people to go there. There is so much to do. It's the second city, Frankie, the second city.
Yeah,
So
first,
people
first.
need to go there. First city, right? So unfortunately, Frankie, we do need to get to Bournemouth. I don't want to, but I'm contractually obliged to by the legal team here at All Villa No Filler
Yeah,
Towers.
can't mess with that
Um,
legal team.
no,
Lionel Hutz, attorney
no,
at law, will deal with you.
they are tough. Frankie, unfortunately, words do fail me. Hopefully, you've got some. Otherwise, this will be a very short show. What did you make of the debacle on the south coast?
Well, I don't even like football, really. I don't even know why I watch football. It's just men kicking a ball around, really, isn't it?
It's just
Awful.
made my inner Mark Lawrenson just go into hyperdrive when I was watching it.
Yeah.
Like obviously you can't get carried away with pre-season. I mentioned last week that Tottenham won, I think, every game in pre-season like 10 years ago, and then proceeded to lose the first 8 games of the season, I think it was.
Yeah.
Maybe in the Martin Yole era, I want to say. So obviously there can be false dawns, but there was enough against Rennes and Man United that suggested to me that there was a certain toughness to the team. But what we witnessed against Bournemouth was there was no toughness, there was no urgency, there was no energy. From the first minute, we conceded the quickest goal that a promoted side has ever scored on match day one. That is just that's what happens. That's just what
It's
Villa
it's
do to
very
you.
it's very Aston Villa. It's very Aston Villa.
It's like, you know, it, the main issue I had with it was that I can't think of a single chance the Villa created, right? And I watched the game and I thought, I don't know what Villa are trying to do. I don't know what the game plan is. I don't know what the structure is. You could argue last season that Steven Gerrard hasn't had a preseason, right? He hasn't signed many of his own players, though he got to sign a couple in the winter. But now he's had a full preseason. He signed a lot of his own players, and you would think that we'd be a lot closer to knowing what it is that Villa are trying to do. But watching it again, watching the Bournemouth match, I'm not convinced Steven Gerrard knows what his best 11 is. I'm not even convinced that there's really a plan at the moment from what I just saw, considering that the midfield three of Ramsey and McGinn. I'll forget Kamara for a second because I thought he actually played really well. But McGinn and Ramsey to me looked like they didn't know how to link up with the front three. Coutinho on the left of the front three didn't really know where to be, and where he was kind of anonymous. And when he got the ball, he was kind of crowded out of it, sometimes by his own players. Danny Ings, just lost, trying to somehow do something when balls have been floated in from deep and headed away by 6'3" Chris Metham in the centre defence of Bournemouth. So, Bournemouth to me looked like they had a game plan. They took the lead, which was perfect for them, which meant they could sit with five at the back. That numbed our fullbacks, and therefore Villa didn't know how to react to it. There was no intricacy, nothing. It was just like the only idea Villa had was to just lump balls into the box and hope for the best. And for Bournemouth, that was perfect. And the people I feel most sorry for are Bournemouth fans, because they've won 2-0 convincingly on the first day of the season. They probably think that might mean that, we've got a chance this year. But it's probably not too dissimilar to what happened with Watford last season, where Watford hammered us on the first day and then proceeded to win only 5 more games all season, one of which was against you-know-who.
Yeah.
So, I can't think of a time on this podcast where I've ever been like too negative or harsh about it. I tried to be like very level-headed about it all. But I watched that on Saturday and I thought, I do not know what this is. I don't know. It just looked to me like there wasn't a game plan. And if there was one, it wasn't enacted properly. And that maybe the goal in the first minute changed how Bournemouth played, but Villa and the coaching staff didn't react to it. So, yeah, it was a great day out. In the end, I really enjoyed it, and I'm done. See you later. Have a good one.
Okay, there we are. That's it. That's it for all Villa no filler today. Yeah, so I agree. I mean, obviously, I saw the game and I agree with pretty much all of what you were saying there, Frankie. It's what I find frustrating is as you say, we've Gerrard has been in charge of Villa for a number of months now, and it's not just the fact he's had a full preseason and a full summer, bring in players. Most of them were done early. We thought that was going to be a huge benefit, didn't we? That they'd come in early and they'd sort of understand how we play and get to know some of the other players and all that stuff, all the benefits that would bring. But it's that, as you were saying, it's like he's been with our club for a long time now in football terms, and I still don't really know how we play. I mean, people talk a lot about how he likes his wingers getting up and attacking and everything, and that's all well and good when clubs don't work, other opposition clubs don't work out how to nullify that, which seems pretty straightforward. As you say, Bournemouth just scored and then went to back 5. Seemed like a very straightforward way of nullifying wing backs, which he obviously did do. But Gerrard has to be more tactically aware to respond to that. I read a stat somewhere that we're particularly poor at coming back into games after conceding early, and you can see why, because I think we are tactically inflexible. We don't yet have a way change things up when we go behind. We start to panic. I think, once we went 1-0 down, there was a sense that, oh God, we're losing to Bournemouth. Bournemouth, who Scott Parker himself said were lacking in numerous areas before heading into the Premier League season. Bournemouth, who, if you look on paper, you think that's a championship side right there.
Yeah, completely.
And we sort of like froze, and we didn't really know what to do. And okay, in the second half, I think we probably improved slightly, but there was no guile, no impetus. Our attacking play in the final third was woeful. I mean, it's all well and good keeping onto the ball, but if you're not going to do anything with it, what's the point? And then the incessant balls going into the box that, as you say, were very easily dealt with by Bournemouth's makeshift back five. Yeah. I mean, what's Danny Ings going to do? We don't have an aerial threat. I know we talked about last season about the importance of a defensive midfielder, and Kamara's, as you say, would probably be the one notable player to come out of it with any sort of credit.
He was good,
but he's not a physically, like, he's strong and everything, but he's not physically imposing in the same way like a Kiefer Moore is. He's not 6'4", 6'5", and we don't have players like that. Certainly, we don't have strikers like that. So if you're going to start lumping the ball into the box, what do you think is going to happen? With 5 Bournemouth defenders back there, we're gonna lose out, aren't we? So I'm just surprised that Gerrard wasn't there trying to get his players to play in a much more effective way. We just look clueless and toothless, and unfortunately, we leave that game with many more questions than we do have answers. And as I said at the start of this rant, we should be at the stage now with Gerrard. He's been there long enough for us to think that there is a plan in place. For all eventualities, when we go up, when we concede, or everything like that, we should have something in place where we are responding and reacting. And there was none of that. And I think, as you say, I think we're a podcast that's generally, we look at the bright side of things, and we try to be realistic, and we don't try and moan and complain.
Bright side of things at Villa's hard to find sometimes.
It is. It's a tough ask.
Find it.
We do try and find the silver lining, but that for me was about as bad a performance I've seen, certainly since we've been doing this podcast. And it's a shame to say that after the first game of the season. So there's a lot to prove against Everton next week. And Everton side, we'll talk about this obviously later in the program, but an Everton side that don't have a striker, that have their own form problems and everything else, lost their first game of the season and all that. So that already feels like second game in, like a big game, which is a depressing thing to say.
Yeah, it does. We'll talk a bit more about the Everton game later, but away at a newly promoted side is probably not the ideal first game of the season. Arsenal found that out last year when they played Brentford early doors last year, lost 2-0. And you could,
Liverpool struggled against Fulham.
Yeah, exactly. And, Arsenal proceeded to lose the first 3 games of last year under Arteta, who was under a lot of pressure at that time. So, maybe Gerrard could look at that and think, well, Arteta was working it out and seems to have hit a good formula. Maybe he can do the same. But, what I can't accept is that, you go away from home and you just have no fight. No one just taking the game, but that's probably what somebody like John McGinn is supposed to do, That's what he's there for. That's why he's the captain. And intended to be just John McGinn took the ball, turned back on his left and crossed the ball into the box. And every single time, Chris Meffam or Scott Billing or whoever just headed it away.
Yeah, but Parker said as much after the game. He just said the reason why we won that game was just desire. Most sort of basic thing you should sort of have as a professional footballer. And we talked about Bailey, Coutinho. Coutinho was a £140 million player not too long ago. Buendia is our record signing. I thought Buendia huffed and puffed when he came on, but there was nothing really there. But he came on as like a number 8, didn't he? He replaced Ramsey. So again, I'm not so sure about that. But regardless, Ings came in for I think undisclosed fee, but certainly a significant chunk of money. And it's all well and good paying money for these players and thinking on paper, wow, God, what a fantastic array of talent we have. But if there's no cohesion and there's no desire, then you're worthless fundamentally,
Yeah.
you've got to have a bit of something about you to be like, right, we want to win. We've gone 1-0 down. The home crowd are bouncing. How are we going to react and how are we going to respond? And there was just none of that from anyone. And players were just looking at each other, shrugging or shrugging their shoulders, pointing, complaining,
Yeah,
everything
it
else.
felt
But
like
there
that.
was no one that grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck. And we've got enough players there that should be able to do that.
Yeah.
And there was no one there.
Yeah. What did you think of choosing Carlos and Concert at the back? Last week, I said I thought they'd go with Mings because of his height and that Bournemouth's main threat was going to be Kiefer Moore, who, is so large that he could replace Atlas as the man who holds up the world upon his shoulders, the poor guy.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a bit of a logical thing to do. Carlos is a new player, settling into a new league, new culture, a whole new language as well. Really, that it's an experience, and I would have thought, I don't know, Mings is a real kind of, yes, he can frustrate people. I'm not here saying that I think he's the greatest defender in the universe, but when he plays for Villa, he tends to do. Villa tend to have looked better in recent years when he plays rather than when he doesn't. So I just thought it would be better for Carlos to play alongside Mings maybe at first. And that the height thing would have worked better against Kiefer Moore and Solanke. But
Yeah.
that's not all they went with. So what did you think of the back two?
Yeah. No. I thought Gerrard wouldn't start Mings. I got that.
Yeah,
I
you
think
did,
I
yeah.
think I said
Certainly we're
I think I
getting the
did say
vibe.
Concert.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought, something's obviously not right between the two in terms of their relationship and being stripped of the captaincy. Gerrard even said it himself. Mings was feeling raw about it in the initial sort of days after it was announced, which is obviously to be expected. I mean, it could have gone two ways, really. One way is the way it did go, which is where he decided that, basically, I don't really have much faith, frankly, in Mings, and I want to go a different route, or that he would have stripped him of his captaincy, but then said to him, "Listen, let's focus now on your game. I'm going to play you. I'm going to trust you. Let's just not focus on the captaincy for now. Let's just trust you as just a football player for Aston Villa." But obviously, went with the former. And looking at the team sheet when it was announced, I was a little bit surprised at a couple of things, but generally, it sort of looked like something I think most fans would have gotten on board with in the main. I know another thing is like Mings is sort of a left centre back, isn't he? The same as Carlos. So maybe for balance, he went for the Concert. He could have gone with Chambers, obviously, but maybe that's another reason why he picked Concert. But yeah, I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I think you're absolutely right. If we had Mings there, he would have offered much more of a competition against Moore, which we lacked.
And a vocal
I mean,
presence.
generally the defending for both set pieces was really, really poor. And set pieces is something that it's been our eternal Achilles heel. We saw it in preseason against Rennes.
Yeah, it was bad. Rennes was a warning sign, I thought.
Rennes was a
said it
warning
after the
sign,
game,
but last
constantly.
season we were struggling with set pieces as well. It's been a warning sign for a while, and we just still haven't got it right. But I mean, we left more just isolated in the box, and he just he had all the time in the world to thump his header past Martinez. So that obviously still needs working on still. But yeah, I think again the Everton game is going to be interesting
for sure.
in terms of where that relationship with Mings is, because I think if he decides to go with Concert again or rotate with Chambers rather than Mings, I think there's a real problem there. And we're still a few weeks away from the end of the transfer window. If you're Mings and if you're being left out the first 2, 3, 4 games of the season, and there's a chance for you to move on, bearing in mind the World Cup is in November, you can't miss too many more games if you want a place on that flight to Qatar. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on, I think, where Tyrone Mings is at the end of August. But for me, against Everton now, I think he should come in. I think you're absolutely right. I think Carlos. I'm not saying he had a terrible game by any stretch, but I thought there was definitely a communication issue. There are a couple of times where Martinez had to come for balls and clear all the defenders out the way because I think there was a bit of a communication issue as to who was going for the ball. A couple of times I noticed outside the box there were 3 players closing down the ball. It looked a little bit like Sunday League football to me, some of that defending, but I think that's a communication thing. New centre back and everything coming in. And I thought in preseason Chambers and Carlos played together the most. Unless I'm mistaken, I think in terms of minutes, they probably played together the most. So I'm surprised Konsa came in because I know he had his injury problems, so that's why he wasn't involved in preseason that much. That was a surprise, but yeah, for me, I think Mings has to come back in next week because we need his leadership, we need his aerial prowess. Yes, he's prone to gaffes, but he gives more than he. We said we're defenders of Mings on this program. He needs to come in and do what he's best at, and lead the team from the back, even though he doesn't have the armband anymore.
Yeah, I think the thing that worries me slightly is, you look at some teams and you know exactly what they're about, you know what their structure is, and if they sell a player, they replace them with someone who just slots into that function. With Villa, Dean Smith couldn't work out what the formula was once Jack Grealish left. I think the Ings signing was something to do with that. I think it slightly left us a bit like, well, we've got 2 really good centre forwards here. What do we do? And Gerrard has a formation from Rangers that he likes. The bombing fullbacks going forward and the 2 behind the striker. But, I am looking at the 4-3-3 yesterday. I suppose that was to accommodate Bailey, who had a really good preseason and deserved a start. I'm still just not sure Gerrard knows what that structure is with these players. And there's clearly more work to do. I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll go and turn it all around with a big win at Everton. And in the next few weeks, suddenly Villa just come alive and that Bournemouth away was just one of those days. But that was a concerning day. So, I think we have every right to be quite concerned. 2 wins in 12. It's not panic stations, but it's certainly a point where I think Villa need to get a few wins quite soon to just, get back into a good flow. Do you know what I mean? Sort of zen.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, as you say, we've got a lot of square pegs and round holes, and it's not a good position to be in when you're. I mean, it's great to have a squad full of quality players.
We have a really strong squad. It is a good squad.
But the feeling that we have to accommodate Coutinho, the feeling that we have to accommodate Bailey, the feeling that we have to accommodate either and or Watkins.
Yeah.
And just calls need to be made on all of them because I mean, if that game's anything to go by, it's just not working. He's got to be decisive and say, right, if Coutinho's not performing, yes, I love the guy, yes, I played with him, everything else, yes, he was 140 million a couple of seasons ago, but if he's not performing, he comes out and we bring Buendia in and give Buendia a chance. The same with Bailey, obviously Bailey had a great preseason. I'm really glad he started. I'd like to see him get into a run of games because that's what he needs. But, there has to be a call as to whether, if we play him, then we change our formation, we change our system. So what do we need to do? Do we need to keep a system and get Bailey out, or do we need Bailey in and we need to work on that system with Bailey in it? So there's so many, as I said, there's so many questions now after that game, which is not what you want pre-season to work that out. You don't want to be starting the season thinking we've got this, that, and the other problems emerging and we need to sort them out quickly. So that is a problem. But listen, Frankie, on the positive side, the season we were relegated bottom of the table. We beat Bournemouth on the first day of the season. So by that football maths, we lose to them first game of the season. We're going to finish top of the league. I think that's how it works.
Yeah, and look, we're only 3 points behind Man City. One behind Liverpool. Look
exactly. We can catch them up.
They're well within reach. We haven't blown the title just yet. Things are about to get as hot as the burning sun here on the All Villa No Filler podcast. As I ask you, Georgios of House Zielinski, what do you think of the current situation around Tyrone Mings?
Well, that certainly is a spicy question.
Very spicy,
Um,
Just
very spicy,
put
very
it
spicy.
on your tabloid.
Um, yeah, that's definitely me reaching for the Greek yogurt right now.
Pouring out your forehead.
Well, I mean, obviously we have touched on it already. It's kind of, I don't know. It does leave a sour or a spicy taste in my mouth rather. A couple of comments kind of after the game sort of made me feel a bit sort of uncomfortable. The fact that Gerrard said that Mings must look him in the eye to show him he's ready to play. What's that all about?
Yeah,
Does that? I mean,
always
that
that.
does suggest that there has been some confrontation or some
Yeah,
comments behind the scenes, which is not ideal. I can't, at the start of the season, you want a happy camp, and there are definitely some campers in the camp who aren't happy. I mean, you only have to look at Morgan Sanson's Instagram story on the day of the game
yeah.
to make you realize that there are a few players there that aren't happy. In case you haven't seen it, it was a post where he said, "I'm fit and ready to play" with a winking emoji, and then the team sheet came out, and Sanson wasn't anywhere on it. So clearly he was
Not happy.
alluding to that fact that he wasn't part of the squad. And then a couple of other. I think I've seen Gilbert tweet a couple of pictures of him training with the kids and he's shrugging his shoulders and stuff. All that sort of stuff is not great to see. And the Ming situation is kind of wrapped up into all that now. I mean, the last thing you want to do is see Tyrone Mings, England international, man who helped get us promoted, leader of the club for the past couple of seasons,
Oh, and off the pitch.
in the bomb squad. You don't want that to happen. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Gerrard is clearly very forthright, and some people like managers like that kind of like tell it like it is. Um, and are prepared to make very very big calls and perhaps ruffle a few feathers. That some players react well to that, some fans like that. I don't know. I think I probably lean towards maybe the Dean Smith school of trying to get people on side, because I think at some point in the season you're going to be relying on players that you might not quite like as either individuals or as players in terms of their ability. It's a long season, cup competitions, all the rest of it. You want players who are going to be happy and players you can rely on to turn to. So that does leave a bit of as I say, a bit of a sour taste. Um, so yeah, I'm not a fan of it. Again, it's another thing that's come out of the defeat to Bournemouth, which makes me slightly concerned for the season ahead. After all that kind of promise and hope and expectation, thinking, here we go, we could make a charge for Europe this season. I do feel slightly deflated. So I don't know how you feel about the relationship between Mings and Gerard Frankie, but I wonder if it's similar to me.
Well, look, I mean, we are outsiders. Ultimately, Steven Gerrard's there at Bodymore Heath every single day dealing with Tyrone Mings. And so he's seeing
Yeah.
whatever it is, face to face. You could compare it to the Aubameyang situation at Arsenal last year, where Arteta just sort of went off him. I think Aubameyang was captain of Arsenal at that point. Certainly, he was
He
like one of
was,
their,
yeah,
he was
he
their
was.
star player, and just sort of forced him out the door, really. And that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from the Mings scenario. You take the captaincy off him, you don't make him a vice captain. I don't really know why Tyrone Mings would react positively to that. I'm not sure humans do react positively to, what would feel like kind of a rejection, really, and a manager saying that you're not good. Like, yes, they're professional footballers, and yes, it is one of the harshest industries going, brutal industry. And to be fair, I thought Mings reacted well publicly to it and really encouraged John McGinn and all that. Don't know how he reacted in private, but from what you gather of Mings, you sort of like to think he's a great professional and that he
Yeah.
would get over it. And so I don't know. I think managers talking like it with the tone that Gerrard did in the post-match press conference about Mings. Does it work? I mean, there might be a couple of occasions it worked for Mourinho when he was in his super successful period. I remember he called out Ricardo Carvalho for having a low IQ once, and Carvalho continued to be one of the best defenders in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, I tend to think it's not a good sign, and that actually it has an adverse effect. And it's, I think I recall Lampard doing it to Timo Werner at Chelsea. I think it was slightly harsher what Lampard said about Werner. Mourinho's done it in more recent years. I'm not saying what Gerrard said was as harsh as what, say, Lampard and Mourinho particularly have said in recent times, but it certainly seemed not great. I didn't like it particularly. I think Tyrone Mings deserves quite a lot of credit, really, for everything he's done at Villa. And if I was Mings, the message I'd be taking is that I don't think I'm necessarily super wanted around here. That could change if he gets a starting place against Everton and he has a great week of training. But as you mentioned earlier, England World Cup is just around the corner. He's just lost his place to the England team, so he's going to desperately want to play and win it back, particularly if an injury happens and Mings is the one to turn to. I wouldn't be massively surprised if he's loaned out, before the end of the transfer window. If he doesn't get games, and he might say, "Look, if I'm not going to get the game, so I want to go somewhere else where I will." And I could see him going to Europe. Could see him going to other teams in the Premier League and being, a positive presence in the defence. Personally, I think I'd probably have started him against Bournemouth. But, Gerrard has every right not to think that Mings is his man, and he has every right to pick his own captain. That's absolutely fine. But, the post-match comment about looking him in the eye and all that, I wouldn't say I loved it, no. But, that's, maybe it works. I don't know.
What you don't want to see happen is, as we're kind of seeing with Matt Target, he's bombed out. He goes out on loan, joins Newcastle on a permanent deal, and is actually doing really well for them. It's not a great look for the club. If I had nothing against Target. I thought he was absolutely fine for us. We brought Digne in, so you can kind of understand why he wanted to move on. I mean, ideally, it would have been great if he stuck around, competition for places and all that. But, I can understand if I'm kicked out of the team and someone's replacing me, that I might want to try and go somewhere else to play. Newcastle, there's a big project going on there, of course. But he's gone there and done really well. What I don't want to see happen, though, is that a player is that Gerrard sees as dispensable is let go, or we sell them, and they go and smash it at another club. That doesn't send a good message, does it, in terms of Gerrard's ability to get the most out of the players that he has?
I think in fairness, it probably was Target's time to go. I think Luca Dean probably is an upgrade. He's certainly a more attacking fullback than Target, who did struggle post Grealish. But yes, I know what you're saying.
I think the jury's still out on Dean, to be honest. I like him, and there were moments where he was contributing and stuff, but I think that there should be more to come considering his pedigree. But anyway, this isn't about Luca Dean. Tyrone Mings, as I was saying, I still think there's more. What I mean is there's more to come from him in a Villa shirt, and what I don't want to see is him going to another club, particularly a rival club in the Premier League, and doing really, really well for them. And we look back as Villa fans and think, I really wish Gerrard didn't say what he said about him at the time, and I really wish that, because it's as we said numerous times on the show, it's all well and good looking at Mings' individual mistakes and pointing to kind of these glaring errors that he can make.
Yeah.
But then the fact of the matter is, we win far more games with Mings in the team than we do without him, and it's a team, so it's never down to one individual player. But I think it does highlight that he's much more important to us than I think a lot of Villa fans give him credit for.
Yeah, he's certainly important to us. I think, I do think we look often more comfortable defending when he's around, or we have more of a presence or something like that. And look, I'm not saying he's the perfect defender. I'm not here going, there seems to be this thing that people say, if a Villa player doesn't play, that all the fans seem to assume they're just great players. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I think generally the trend has been that when Mings is in the defence, Villa's defence tends to look a little bit better. Maybe I'll be proven totally wrong. And, I like Chambers a lot. I like Konsa a lot. I love the signing of Carlos. And that pairing will work itself out, and Villa will find the formula, and everything will be hunky dory the next few weeks. But yeah, it's certainly an interesting situation with Mings. But I tell you what, the one place he's not going, Leeds United. Those fans are obsessed with that man. Every single time we play them, they just can't stop singing about him. And it was hilarious when we beat them 3-0, right?
Yeah, and he got the assist, didn't he, for Chambers as well?
Lovely assist as well.
Nice
all while
assist.
they were singing. So, in 10 years' time, I'll tell you what's going to happen. Aston Villa will have won the Premier League. Please, God. And, or no, actually, Aston Villa will have beaten a newly promoted side on the first day of the season. That miracle will happen.
That would be nice.
And Leeds fans will still be singing about Tyrone Mings.